That night still feels like a shadow that never truly left me. I was 15 at the time, and it was late September. The air had just started to turn cold in the evenings, and the quiet of my house felt deeper than usual. My parents had gone out with family friends and told me they would be back very late. I did not want to spend the whole night alone, so I called my friend and neighbor Chris, who lived across the street. We had known each other forever and spent most nights in my basement playing games or watching movies. But that night we grew bored and restless. Out of nowhere, Chris suggested we play hide and seek. It sounded silly at first, but the house felt different with most lights turned off, and something about the darkness made it more exciting. Only the light in the kitchen remained on. We agreed on a few rules. No attic, no crawl space. No going outside. Everything else was allowed. Chris hid first. I counted to 50, then began searching. The kitchen. The hall closet. The bathroom. My parents' room. My own room. Nothing. Finally, I went to the basement where I found him curled behind some boxes. We laughed and switched roles. I hid under the guest bed upstairs. The room was silent except for my heartbeat. Then I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. Slow, heavy steps. They came into the guest room and stopped right next to the bed. I held my breath waiting for Chris to lift the bed skirt, but the footsteps suddenly moved away after a few minutes. I crawled out and went downstairs expecting Chris to be on the couch, but he was not there. When I shouted that the game was over, a voice answered from the basement, asking where I was hiding. The sound came from downstairs, even though I had heard footsteps upstairs a moment earlier. When Chris came up, he looked confused and asked how I returned upstairs so quickly. I told him I had been under the bed the whole time, and he swore he had checked the room and heard someone breathing inside. We tried playing again, but something felt wrong. Every sound in the house made us tense. When we finally sat on the couch, a loud thump came from upstairs. Then slow creaking footsteps crossed the hallway. We grabbed a fireplace poker and went to check. The guest room door, which I knew I had left open, was now shut. Behind the door, something dragged across the carpet. When we opened it, the room was empty except for the closet door hanging half open. As we turned to leave, the sound of the front door opening echoed through the house. We hid in my bedroom until we heard footsteps going down to the basement. That was our chance. We ran out the back door and across the street to Chris' house. His parents called the police, but the officers found nothing. No break-in. No footprints. No signs of anyone ever being there, but we knew the truth. There had been someone in that house with us. Someone who never wanted us to find him. I thought that experience would be the scariest thing I ever lived through. But I was wrong. When I was 14, the year before, something similar happened. But that time we were in the woods behind my neighborhood. Dense, endless trees that stretched for miles. My friends and I used to play hide and seek there during summer nights. The darkness swallowed everything. Nothing looked familiar, and every shadow felt alive. During one round, I hid behind a fallen log and heard someone walking through the leaves. The steps were slow and careful. I thought it was the seeker until he later swore he never came that far into the woods. During another round, I heard whispering behind me and footsteps going deeper into the trees. When we regrouped, Matt said he saw a tall man standing between the trees watching. No one believed him. But I did. From that day on, the woods never felt the same. Something lived in there with us. Something that moved when we moved. Something that watched from places the light could not reach. And then came the summer. I was 14 when I met a boy named Keith. It was a hot afternoon. In July, my friends and I were playing basketball in my yard when a boy around 16 walked up from the dirt road. None of us recognized him. His hair was messy. His clothes were too warm for the weather. He acted like he already knew us. He asked if we wanted to play manhunt, and we agreed even though something felt strange. I hid in the storage shed under a pile of tarps. The shed smelled like gasoline and dust. Eventually, Adam found me, and we went back to the patio. Everyone returned except Keith. We waited and waited, but he never came back. We assumed he left. Later that evening, I found a weathered rope under my bedroom window. It had not been there before. When I went to bed that night, I heard footsteps outside my door. Slow, careful steps that stopped right outside. Then I heard the front door close. The next night I woke up around 2 in the morning to a scratching sound at my window. Slow, dragging scratches like someone running a nail across the glass. When I opened the blinds slightly, a tall figure was standing right outside staring in. I screamed and my dad ran outside with his shotgun, but the figure had disappeared. We never saw Keith again, but years later everything feels connected. The footsteps in the hall, the whispering in the woods, the scratching on the window, the guest room door closing on its own, the feeling that someone is always watching from the dark. I used to think these were separate moments in my life. Different nights, different fears, different shadows, but now I am certain of something else. Someone has been following me for years. Someone who hides in basements, in woods, in storage sheds, under windows, behind doors. Someone who moves silently until the moment he wants to be heard. I do not know who he is. I do not know where he lives. But I know one thing. When you hide in the dark, you are never really hiding alone, and no matter how many years pass, he always finds a way to keep playing the game, even if no one else wants to play anymore.